Have you ever imagined what it would be like to face a polar bear up close in its icy Arctic habitat? Polar bears are powerful predators, and encounters with them can quickly turn dangerous. How would you react if a polar bear approached you, curious and unafraid, or if you spotted one in the distance with no shelter nearby? Come to today's horrifying story. Story 1. In the remote, desolate wilderness of Chukotka, Russia, where the permafrost meets the Arctic Ocean and human settlements are few and far between, a horrific encounter unfolded in 2019 that would forever alter those involved and serve as a stark reminder of the dangers. Chukotka, known for its extreme cold and harsh conditions, is also home to polar bears, apex predators. Territories often overlap with human settlements, as one man tragically learned it in an event that would become one of the most chilling bear attacks in recent memory. It was in the early winter of 2019 when the incident occurred. The victim, a 41-year-old man who worked as a reindeer herder, was alone in a remote part of Chukotka, checking on his herd in the wild expanse of the Russian Arctic. Reindeer herders, like those who live in the area, are accustomed to the isolation of the tundra and the unpredictable nature of the Arctic wilderness. While encountering wildlife like polar bears is always a risk, it is a reality that herders face as part of their daily life. The man had worked in this region for years, navigating the cold, vast landscape with the knowledge of a seasoned local, yet nothing could have prepared him for the terror he was about to experience. On that fateful day in December 2019, as the man made his way through the icy terrain on foot, checking on his herd, he spotted a figure in the distance, a massive, white shape against the snow. At first he mistook it for a snowdrift, or perhaps an animal in the distance. But as he drew closer, his stomach dropped. A polar bear, hungry and desperate, was stalking the area. Polar bears, known for their insatiable hunger during the winter months when food is scarce, had been known to venture into human settlements in search of food, and it was clear that this one had wandered far from its usual hunting grounds. The herder knew that polar bears are not easily frightened, and that they can be deadly when hungry. The man, realizing the danger, immediately turned and began to retreat, hoping to put distance between himself and the bear. But the bear had already noticed him, and it wasted no time in charging. The predator moved with terrifying speed, its powerful limbs carrying it effortlessly across the frozen ground. The herder, a man of experience, tried to use his surroundings to his advantage, running towards the nearest outcrop of rocks in a desperate attempt to take cover. The bear was relentless, its eyes fixed on its prey. The herder's heart raced as he scrambled over the icy ground, but the bear was too fast. It reached him within moments, knocking him to the ground with a violent swipe of its massive paw. In the midst of the struggle, the man's screams echoed through the empty wilderness, but there was no one around to hear him. Though the herder fought with everything he had, using his strength and every survival instinct to try and fend off the bear, it was clear he was no match for the predator. The bear's attack was brutal and unrelenting, its teeth sinking into the herder's flesh as it sought to incapacitate his prey. The man's survival instincts kicked in as he attempted to play dead, a tactic that has sometimes worked against bears, but in this case it did not. The bear, driven by hunger and aggression, continued its assault. By the time the man's fellow herders arrived on the scene, it was too late. The bear had already inflicted fatal injuries. The attack was a devastating tragedy that sent shockwaves through the community in Chukotka. Polar bears are typically solitary animals, and while attacks on humans are rare, they are a deadly reminder of the power these creatures possess. The herder's death marked one of the more recent fatalities attributed to polar bear encounters in Russia, underscoring the increasing risks of human-bear conflict in the Arctic regions. In the wake of the attack, Local authorities responded by increasing patrols and warning residents and travelers of the dangers of polar bear encounters. While these majestic creatures are protected, the reality of living in close proximity to them means that people must always be vigilant. In areas like Chukotka, where polar bears are more common, the risk of an encounter is heightened, especially during the harsh winter months when food scarcity forces bears to venture closer to human settlements. Story 2. In the remote Arctic outpost of Resolute Bay, Nunavut, Canada, a chilling event in 2017 left the small, isolated community forever haunted by the harsh realities of living on the edge of polar bear territory. So Resolute Bay, a settlement located on the northern coast of Cornwallis Island, is one of the most northern communities in Canada, where the Arctic climate dominates life and the wilderness reigns supreme. For the residents who call this unforgiving place home, encounters with polar bears are part of life, but on August 22nd, 2017, the situation took a deadly turn, highlighting the fragile line between humans and nature in the Arctic. In the early morning, a local man, a 31-year-old, was walking a familiar route toward his job at the community's power plant. So the path was well known to him. It ran through the outskirts of town, where residents were occasionally reminded of the presence of polar bears. The man was alert, knowing full well the dangers of bear encounters, yet that day he did not anticipate the horrific attack that awaited him. The polar bear that crossed his path was not simply wandering. It was a massive, hungry adult male, likely searching for food to herself in the scarce environment. As the man rounded a corner, she came face to face with the bear. What followed was nothing short of terrifying. The bear, driven by hunger, immediately focused on the man as potential prey. In polar bear country, hunger often overrides a bear's usual avoidance of humans, and once a polar bear has its sights set, it can be nearly impossible to deter. Seeing the man, the bear charged with shocking speed across the icy terrain. The victim likely only had seconds to react, but in the end, it wasn't enough. As the bear mauled him, the man's cries for help rang out through the cold air, echoing against the ice and snow. A nearby resident heard his desperate screams and rushed to the scene, arriving just in time to see the horrific attack still in progress. Armed with only basic deterrence, they tried to scare the bear away, but the predator's focus on its prey was unwavering. The bear continued its assault until a larger rescue group arrived with firearms, finally managing to drive the bear away from the man. By then, however, it was too late. This incident left the community of Resolute Bay shaken to its core. While polar bears are common in the region, direct attacks on humans are relatively rare. Yet, with climate change reshaping the Arctic landscape, the bear's primary habitat, sea ice, is diminishing. As a result, polar bears are increasingly forced to come onto land, venturing closer to human settlements in search of food, which raises the risk of fatal encounters like this one. This tragedy served as a stark warning for residents of the region and all those who venture into polar bear territory. In response to the attack, local authorities issued urgent advisories to the community, reminding everyone to be vigilant and prepared. Polar bears may appear majestic from afar, but they are apex predators and highly unpredictable, especially when food is scarce. It is essential for Arctic residents and travelers alike to recognize the dangers these animals present and take preventive measures when traveling in areas where bears are known to roam. Story 3. On the desolate shores of Wrangel Island, Russia, an isolated and frigid landmass north of the Arctic Circle, a harrowing and tragic story unfolded in the winter of 2018. Wrangel Island, known for its rugged terrain and severe climate, is home to a high density of polar bears. The island is so remote and treacherous that only a few scientists and staff members live there seasonally, stationed at a small research post to study the unique flora and fauna that thrive in these extreme conditions. But in this lonely and frozen wilderness, The danger isn't just the cold. The true threat lurks in the form of the powerful and ever-hungry polar bears that roam the island, especially in the lean winter months. In early January 2018, a Russian scientist named Sergei Grigoriev was stationed on Wrangel Island with a few colleagues. They were familiar with the polar bear activity that frequently surged during winter as the bears, driven by hunger and the lack of food sources, became bolder and ventured closer to human settlements. The scientists were well aware of these risks, but it was impossible to anticipate the deadly turn of events that was about to happen. As they went about their daily tasks at the research station, a large adult polar bear began to circle the area, drawn by the scent of food and curious about the humans occupying its territory. Initially, Sergei and his team took the necessary precautions, staying indoors as much as possible and attempting to frighten the bear away whenever it got too close. However, the bear was relentless, seemingly determined to get closer to the humans, and returned repeatedly, each time showing more aggression. So the scientists tried using bear deterrence, making loud noises and firing warning shots in the air. But the bear, desperate from hunger, wasn't easily dissuaded. Its visits became more frequent and more aggressive with each passing day, an ominous sign of its growing desperation. On January 14, 2018, the situation escalated to a horrific climax. Sergei, likely needing to perform some necessary task outside, stepped out of the station. The bear, which had been lingering nearby, saw its chance and charged at him in a terrifying display of speed and power. The sheer strength and weight of the bear were overwhelming, and Sergei had no time to defend himself. His colleagues, alerted by his screams, rushed to try to save him, but they were unarmed and helpless against a predator of this size and strength. Despite the desperate efforts of his colleagues to scare the bear away, it continued its assault, unmoved and unstoppable. For by the time they finally managed to frighten the bear off, the damage had been done. Sergei, another tragic victim of the merciless Arctic wilderness. So the death of Sergei Grigoriev on Wrangel Island shook the small community of scientists and researchers who ventured to such remote places. The isolation of their outpost meant they were far from immediate help, and the limited resources available to them underscored the reality of living in one of the most hostile places on Earth. Polar bears, often portrayed as majestic symbols of the Arctic, are apex predators, and encounters with them are far from the serene scene seen on nature documentaries. For the residents of Wrangel Island, this attack was a sobering reminder that these creatures, as magnificent as they are, can also be lethal. After Sergei's death, Russian authorities issued stronger advisories to Arctic research stations, emphasizing the importance of strict bear safety protocols. Researchers on Wrangel Island and other Arctic territories were urged to enhance protective measures, including securing food sources to avoid attracting bears, installing stronger barriers, and carrying bear deterrents and firearms for self-defense. Encounters with polar bears in this region are on the rise due to climate change, as melting sea ice forces the bears inland, bringing them closer to human settlements in search of food. For anyone living or working in polar bear country, the lessons from this tragic incident are crucial. So when traveling in regions where polar bears are present, it is vital to always carry effective deterrents, such as bear spray and, if allowed, firearms. Avoid storing or disposing of food waste outdoors, as it attracts hungry bears from miles away. If you must venture outside, do so in groups and be alert to any signs of bear activity. Familiarize yourself with bear safety protocols, and if a bear is sighted nearby, remain indoors as much as possible, reinforcing doors and windows if necessary to create a barrier. The tragic story of Sergei Grigoriev's death on Wrangel Island serves as a powerful reminder of the precarious balance between humans and wildlife in the Arctic. Polar bears may be awe-inspiring, but they are also wild animals driven by survival instincts that can make them dangerous when they perceive humans as a potential food source. As climate change continues to alter the Arctic landscape, increasing the frequency of human bear encounters, it is essential for those venturing to these remote territories to respect the power of these formidable creatures and to take every possible precaution to ensure their own safety.